Hey everyone, Meinke from MLive&apos. Jump in Justin Rogers. Lions coming off a second straight win. Justin,
Parade.
don't look now, but the Lions are 3-7, and there's a real possibility that they could sneak. They could at least be in the discussion to finish 500 this year. If you look at the way the schedule plays out, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I'm saying I think the opportunity is there for them to at least have a winning second half of the season and possibly 500s in the sights with only one winning team on the rest of the schedule, and that team is the Green Bay Packers, whom they've already beat on the road. And they get the Packers this time at home and in prime time. What's your reaction on the way the schedule plays out?
I think they could go 500 in the second half. I think maybe even one game over 500 in the second half. I definitely do not think this team is winning out by any means. I got the schedule looking at it here in front of me, that's why I'm looking down. But I think Philadelphia is a very winnable game. That's a team that's struggling defensively. They're starting Mark Sanchez at quarterback probably again this week. I think it's likely the Lions win that game. I do not think they beat Green Bay. A couple road games, always tough. And Chicago's playing a lot better right now. I know they lost yesterday to a good Denver team, but I don't see the Lions winning in Chicago this year. So I think it's probably best case scenario, probably 500 second half.
Best case scenario, okay. I think the best case scenario is they go 8-8.
Yeah,
That's the best case. I'm not saying it happening. It's happening, but the opportunity
that's
is
the
there.
miracle
Only
scenario.
one. They're playing better on both sides of the ball. They only have one winning team left on the schedule, and Green Bay will be tough. But again, they've put the clamps on Aaron Rodgers in 2 out of 3 games since Terrell Austin came aboard. They've got his number. The big question, the big thing I think about is if say this happens, say the best case scenario happens, and they go 7-9, 8-8, something like that. What happens with Jim Caldwell? What happens with Sheldon White? If Sheldon White loses 1 or 2 games, if whatever that would be, 7-1, right, or 6-2 as GM. Do the Lions keep this guy around? Do they keep Jim Caldwell around? Because it's a very interesting question. I think Martha Ford told them just win football games, and if they do that down the stretch, I think there is a possibility that those guys are around next year.
I don't think whatever the Lions do in the second half should have any impact on Sheldon White's candidacy.
I agree with you, but also we're not Martha Ford.
I know, but he is bringing in guys like C.J. Wilson, Bill Bentley, Cresden Butler, guys that are making minor contributions, but this roster wasn't constructed by him any more or less than when he took the position. So I think that they are still obligated to do the national search to find the best possible candidate, and I have a hard time believing, as I've said before, I think Sheldon White is a qualified GM candidate. I think he should get a shot somewhere someday, but I have a hard time believing that a guy that's been here for 19 years deserves this job and a continuation of really the failures that have plagued this organization for ever, it feels like.
To be clear, I could not agree with you anymore. But what I would do and what Martha Ford would do are discernibly different.
Sure.
And we've seen that in 50 years of Ford ownership. And would I put it past the Fords to promote Sheldon White to the permanent position if the Lions go, say, 7-1 on his watch? No, not at all. Look what they've done in the past, and with promoting Martin Mayhew and all the promotions from within and the patronage you've seen, and even now with the Rod Wood hire. Again, Rod Wood could be a good hire for all I know. He's just a money man, but it does speak to the greater trends of the Ford family, which is to protect their own, to take care of their own, all that kind of stuff. And so I know for a fact they like Jim Caldwell. They really like Jim Caldwell, the man, and if he turns this around, even if it's in the meaningless second half against crappy teams, I almost said a word I can't say, then I wouldn't put it past them, put it past the Fords to install these guys going forward. But would I do it? Absolutely not. I've written time and again, I think that the Lions, they need a clean house, they need a fresh start, they need new ideas, both from a football standpoint, but even from an optics standpoint. They will lose a lot of fans, I think, if they give those positions to people who have been around for, say, 20 years with the organization, as Sheldon White has, even if he has done some good things in the background.
Yeah, I'm less certain about Jim Caldwell's future. Again, that's going to be the next general manager's decision. I do not see Rod Wood or Martha Ford saddling the next general manager with Caldwell. But if they do win, as you suggest, 6 to 8 games, and they had that momentum carrying over, the next general manager may want to keep some continuity involved. There may be more staffing changes, but they may like the way the direction they're heading with Jim Bob Cooter as offensive coordinator with Ron Prince running the offensive line. Those moves, while they haven't caused this massive change, they have got the team trending in the right direction right now offensively. Still not where they should be given all their weapons, but it's not unprecedented for a coach to stick with a new general manager, at least the trial season. Could also matter on how late the GM hire happens. If a lot of the top candidates are already off the board, that may cause a little bit more reluctance to change, because that's his big first call. I know we also talked about quarterback Matthew Stafford, but that first coaching hire is a big first call. So to stick with Caldwell for a season is less of a risk for him long term than hiring an unqualified candidate maybe he doesn't like for his head coach.
A lot of interesting scenarios if the Lions do have a more productive second half, and the opportunities will be there. I'm not sure if it'll happen or not, but the opportunities will be there against some crap teams. Of course, all of this conjecture is dependent on the Lions actually taking care of business and actually taking care of some of these teams. And they'll get their first opportunity on Thursday against the Eagles, a very interesting team because of what they do offensively. And it's so exotic. It's so different than what the rest of the NFL does. And that can be difficult maybe on short rest or whatever. But it's a struggling team. They've lost 3 out of 4. They got killed by the Bucs this weekend. It's a team the Lions should beat, and if they have to beat them, but they have to take care of business to even have Sheldon White and Jim Caldwell and some of these things we're talking about even be possibilities. If the Lions win 4 games this year, then I think their fates are written.
6 more games. How many do they win? I know we talked about this. I think we both were in the ballpark of 4 last time.
Yeah, I think they win 4 more.
4 out of the 6.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
No. Well, hold on. Yeah, 3 to 4. I'll say 3 to 4. I don't know. You're putting me on the spot.
Nope, it's too late. You already said 4. Everybody heard it. Write it down.
No, I think they beat Philly.
Yep.
I think they beat the Packers at home on Thursday night in prime time. I think that's a game they win. Probably lose in St. Louis. Probably lose in New Orleans, and you got San Francisco at home and at Chicago. So yeah, 3 or 4. I think seems about right to me. So 6 or 7 wins, and again, I think that puts you into that stratosphere of some interesting organizational decisions with Caldwell in the front office.
My most likely wins are Philly and San Fran. I do not think they beat the Packers at home. I know they've had some success against Green Bay recently.
Yep.
I watched a chunk of that Packers game yesterday. It looked like they finally figured out some of their.
But they weren't playing that almighty Detroit defense.
They were playing the almighty Minnesota defense, which is significantly more consistent this season. And I think they could win one of the 2 on the road, St. Louis and New Orleans. Both those teams have major flaws on opposite sides of the ball. If they stop Todd Gurley, I think they got a great shot against St. Louis. Matthew Stafford might throw for 700 yards against New Orleans. That's a terrible, terrible secondary. So I think 2 or 3 wins is probably more likely.
At any rate, certainly a more forgiving second half
for sure.
Schedule. That's what we've been saying since the preseason. And you just had to take care of business in those first few games, even tread a little bit of water, and you can make some moves in the second half. Obviously, the Lions drowned. They drowned in those first few weeks. It is interesting to think that they're 3-7 now. If they say beat San Diego and hang on to that 21-3 lead, and if they beat Seattle, it's a very interesting finish to the season.
Yeah.
At 5-5, and a lot of losing teams in the NFC and so forth. But as the case is, Lions lost too many games; they're out of it. But second half of the schedule sets up very nicely. We'll see how it plays out. For Justin Rogers, I'm Kyle Meinke. We are MLive. Keep her here.